Microsoft is no longer allowing users with a Kaby Lake or Ryzen CPU to update Windows 7 or 8.1 to the newest version. This includes security updates, which is kind of a big deal. Maka here with another topic video. So yeah, Microsoft made a statement quite a long while ago, actually. It was like over a year ago, and they stated, hey, if you are going to be running Windows 7 and 8.1, you should probably consider upgrading if you are running the Kaby Lake or Ryzen CPU. And this used to include Skylake as well. However, they ended up retracting that statement because a lot of people were like, hey, by the way, this is kind of a big deal because we've been running on Windows, 7 since Kaby Lake has been out because Windows 10 wasn't actually available. I believe that was the release window anyways. I may be incorrect on that, but that seems like where it was going. And so basically they kind of had to retract that statement. But it also kind of brings up the question of why didn't they just retract it altogether? And it's obvious that they can support these new CPUs if they're able to kind of retract like, hey, well, okay, fine, we'll support Skylake. It's just kind of like one of those grudgingly things. It's like, oh yeah, fine, we'll do it. That kind of brings up a question, but at the same time, software development is kind of difficult, and a lot of people kind of overestimate the sort of compatibility that ends up going into this, because Microsoft's statement back in the day was Windows 7 and 8.1, or more specifically 8, wasn't actually able to kind of predict what was going to happen in the future with hardware and its features. And so, for example, you can look at Windows XP that never actually supported USB 2.0 and etc. However, what ended up fixing that was third-party software and drivers, and that's always kind of been the case. And I don't think Windows 10 is something they could have been able to sort of predict what's going to happen in the future either. And so we're definitely going to get into a situation to where Windows 10, if they want to have any sort of native support, is going to have to be updated. But that also kind of supports Microsoft's theory of we want everything to be sort of a service. We want to make Windows a service rather than just a software that you download and then there you go. So yeah, it kind of goes in line with their thing, but it is sort of a jerky thing to do. Now, who is this actually going to affect? Most people are actually not going to be affected by this, and I think that a lot of the outrage is going to be sort of minimal because it's not actually going to affect a lot of people. The average user, if they're actually running these updated CPUs, they're going to be getting it through either a sort of pre-built system, or they're actually, over-speaking and they have a tech-savvy friend who's already going to know what's going on. And so chances are it's already going to be running Windows 10. So for example, like let's say you're somebody who's like, I need to buy a new computer and I want to get the latest CPU, and you buy a pre-built, it's going to have Windows 10 on it. Most pre-builts, unless it's a specialty shop and you go out of your way to get Windows 7, it's going to have Windows 10 or Windows 8, I guess. Some people go for that, I think, probably, maybe. I don't know. Do people still hate Windows 8? I don't necessarily know. But yeah, so basically, nobody in the average consumer range is going to be affected by this, because there's also the case of if you're running Windows 7 on a sort of modern, I guess, home computer system that you bought from the store or whatever, basically you're probably not going to be running a Kaby Lake or a Ryzen CPU because they are the newer CPUs, and basically you have to go out and either buy new hardware for it, or you have to end up buying, your own kind of build for it. And so you have to do like pre-built, which is going to go into the enthusiast and higher end tier. And this is who's actually going to affect, is the higher end and the sort of mid-lane enthusiast tier. Basically, if you are an enthusiast and you want to run Windows 7, let's, face it, Windows 10 is not the most compatible software on the, face of the planet. Basically, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work on it. And no, that's not necessarily Microsoft's fault. I think that goes into the software companies that end up making this side of software. They should be updating it so it works on Windows 10 so that everyone can be using it, because Windows 10, I actually like Windows 10. And so, yeah. But the case is, this is actually going to affect them pretty heavily, because it's not only including just, hardware features or whatever, or software features, sorry. And so, like, it's like, oh, yeah, they're changing up the start menu or something like that. I'm sorry, but they're probably done changing up the software, and basically the only updates we're really going to care about are security updates. However, they're actually making it so it's also going to be the security updates. I remember a lot of people kind of advocating for it, and it's like, oh, yeah, well, Microsoft has a point, because it costs a lot of money, and it takes a lot of energy to end up developing this software. And so, yeah, they just don't want to have to worry about the compatibility of it anymore, and they can't guarantee it. And a lot of people were like, oh, yeah, but maybe we'll still do security updates. We'll be fine. It's no big deal. And it rolls out, and basically, yeah, you can't even get security updates, which is a big deal, because security is important, especially when it comes to software in the modern age. There's a lot of things that people can do to get into your computer, and that's not good. So you want those security updates. Now, why is Microsoft doing this? Now, for one, there is the obvious of, it's quite legitimate. Their statement is sort of true. They have to update this software to be able to support new features. That said, there's a certain case to where you could argue that they need to have drivers and things like that. Drivers have always been around to end up fixing it. Let's say like a modern GPU, for example, like let's say my 1070, for example, it doesn't run natively on Windows 7. It actually has to have a driver and everything to work, and that's how most software ends up working. Now, Windows 10 has an auto driver sort of thing, and it actually works without any sort of NVIDIA driver on it. Yes, it sucks, and you can't really get a lot of performance out of it, but it does at least work. It functions. It uses its purpose. That said, they've always had drivers, and so Microsoft really has no reason to do this, and Windows 10 is sort of their kind of main point right now, and this is their sort of main reason. They want Windows 10 to be a service, and they want everyone to be running it, and Microsoft's theory is that in the future, they're going to continue updating Windows 10 so that it will support these newer softwares and these newer hardwares they're going to be put into these things, like let's say USB 4.0 when it comes out, or sorry, we're probably going to move on to a new connector and everything like that by then, but regardless, they're hoping that they can end up keeping Windows 10 up to date. Now, I have a feeling there's going to be, in like, let's say 10 to 20 years, there's going to be some sort of framework problems with it, and there's not going to be able to keep it up to date like they think they are, because basically that's how software works. When you build a framework, it's very difficult to change that framework, but maybe Microsoft's going to be a little bit more stern on it and everything like that, and maybe they're actually going to put in the effort for it. But if they're not even going to support newer hardware on older OSs, I'm not necessarily 100% sure, but that's just a little bit of skepticism, and obviously we'll get to that when it comes down the road. Now, is this going to affect future hardware as well? The chances are yes. So after Kaby Lake and everything like that, or Ryzen, whatever comes out to Ryzen, it's probably going to end up affecting those as well. So if you are looking to end up upgrading eventually, you're probably going to want to look at upgrading to Windows 10. And this is Microsoft's main point here. And this is mostly what I think is actually happening, is that Microsoft is like, hey, we can end up having all these higher end users moving to Windows 10 if we end up blocking it. I don't agree with them just blocking the updates outright. I think they should allow updates to keep going. I just don't think that they should probably add a sort of cautionary flag and be like, hey, we're not officially supporting this software or hardware. Sorry, I keep calling it software. I apologize for that. This hardware. And so basically what they can end up doing is doing what they've done in the past and basically say like, hey, you're running an SSD on Windows XP. By the way, this isn't officially supported, and be like, all right, you know what? That's cool. I'm fine with that. And then they could still run with it. And then if it has problems, Microsoft doesn't have to worry about it. It's like, hey, we warned you, by the way. So, you can't really fret about it. And, yes, that is a sort of jerky thing to do as well, but it's better than just saying, no, you can't get any updates whatsoever. Wow, my game is stuttering like crazy. I'm having some hard drive issues because I'm trying to record and play this game that actually, it uses a lot of CPU and everything like that. So things are not going to load like they should. I should probably just run off somewhere. Whoops. Anyways, back on topic. So yeah, basically Microsoft just wants people to run on Windows 10. At least that's my theory. Now, like I said, everything else that they were saying is not necessarily out of the ballpark. Yes, there are going to be some sort of situations to where, yes, it will be software limitations to where they're just like, yeah, we can't actually end up continuing support. It's the fact that they're blocking it outright. Like, you can't even update it. Now, somebody might end up finding out a workaround for it or some sort of trickery with the registry or something like that. It could just literally be like a secret entry, within a driver or something like that. So you can end up getting custom drivers and full Windows or something like that. But the chances of it are somewhat slim in the near future. I think that it's going to take a longer period of time. And I feel like the usage case for Windows 7 and 8.1 is kind of dwindling. Windows 10, for as much as people love to hate Microsoft and everything that they do, Windows 10 isn't bad. I've been running Windows 10 for quite a while now, ever since it came out, and I didn't run it on my secondary system until I knew that it was good. But I did end up running it for quite a long period of time, and I've actually liked it since its release. It used to have a ton of software problems, but most companies have kind of caught up and they've started updating it. So if you're looking to upgrade to Windows 10, it's not necessarily a bad deal. And I've noticed performance increases, but not everyone has. And I know there's a bunch of server software and stuff like that that people aren't going to be able to use anymore because basically they have to have all these upgrades and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Also, I think that I completely broke my game because people are just not loading into my game anymore. So yeah, probably going to end this here. So yeah, it's kind of a sucky thing that Microsoft is doing this, and I think that Microsoft definitely could roll out updates, and we could see them turn around and do something else if they end up seeing some loss to market. You can always look into Linux if you're looking to move on to other software. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be as complicated as they're saying it is to actually support this new hardware. Yes, it is a lot of development, but at the same time, they could just end up having a warning. I'm just going to ride a horse because none of the NPCs are loading. None of the enemies are loading either. Did I just completely disconnect? There's supposed to be enemies here. Oh, there's enemies over there. Okay, I'm starting to get some stuttering and loading now. All right, note to self, don't play Black Desert and record at the same time because it will completely break. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this one. Make sure to share your thoughts on the whole Microsoft ordeal. I know that a lot of people were very upset about it, but I don't think that most people are going to be affected by it. Like I was saying, you know, if you're running Windows 7 and you're, you know, somebody who's like an enthusiast running Windows 7 for a purpose, it's just like, oh yeah, my computer just hasn't been, oh no, my mount's under attack. Oh my god, I gotta save my horse. God, this is a terrible idea. Why is it attacking my horse? It did nothing wrong. But yeah, basically, if you're running, you know, non-Kaby Lake and Ryzen, or if you are, I should probably say it this way, if you are running Ryzen and Kaby Lake, the chances are you'll probably end up benefiting from Windows 10 in the future as well. And one of the use cases I didn't really mention is the fact that it's probably a better time to do it now rather than later, because I think right now is when Kaby Lake and Ryzen are going to be starting to get put into the consumer sort of products like I was talking about, like some of the laptops and things like that that are going to be like very small consumer grade, like mid and low end machines. And so basically this is going to be the time to do it, because if they do it in the future, then there's going to be a bunch of people that are just kind of like normal users, and then they're going to end up having to be affected by this. Like all of a sudden it'll be like, your Windows isn't getting updates anymore, and they're not going to know what to do. They're going to be like, oh, well, okay, I guess it's not getting updates anymore. And then all of a sudden that's going to open up a bunch of vulnerabilities to everyone, because the more PCs that are affected by viruses, the more likely it is for you to get affected by it as well, which is super not cool. So yeah, also I need to move my horse because these things, they don't do any damage to them. They're just being annoying. Anyways, like I said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. I'm going to go trot around on a horse and probably reboot my game because I like having NPCs. I don't know why it bugged out. That was super strange. I've never had that happen before.